Hi, everybody. I really enjoyed getting to know a little bit about you last week during Module 1, and I'm excited to get started on Module 2, which is, of course, beginning today. So if you will go ahead and hit that content button at the top of the page, you can walk through this with me by scrolling down and clicking on Module 2. So in Module 2, as you can see, it's called Analyzing Poetry Part 2. So we're going to continue on with our analysis of poetry this week. And to begin, you'll start by clicking on the module overview, just to get an idea of a summary of what we're going to be doing this week. So, can writing change its reader and can poetry change the world? Are two key questions to ask yourself this week. And you might even want to start a journal for this class and write down some of these questions that you find in the overviews, or some questions that you just generally have that you want to reflect on. Because the more we write, and that includes journaling, the better our skills will be. And so, I love to journal. I've been journaling since I was in second grade. And that was before I could really even spell things correctly. I was spelling phonetically, but I still have that journal, and it's really special to me. And I continued keeping a journal throughout my life, and I noticed that my skills really improved just through that practice of sitting down either at the beginning or the end of the day and reflecting on my day. So, it's really easy to sort of just talk about what happened and your emotions. But through this, you get a better sense of the mechanics and the grammar of language, how they work, how to construct sentences, how to get your emotions across. So it's a really valuable tool to begin that journaling process. So in this module, you're going to learn how to further analyze poetry through writing a literary analysis paper. So you're going to choose a poem and write a detailed interpretation of your chosen text. You're going to talk about what the author is saying and think about how they say it as you're building your own argument about the text. And you'll be considering the argument the author is making, how the author is hoping to change the reader. What powerful words are they using that is going to implement change? What kind of voice do you have in this literary essay? And you're going to be reflecting on this question: how does poetry speak deeply to the reader? Thinking about, as you're analyzing the poem, and maybe even using this to create your thesis sentence, what is that unique thing that this particular poet is trying to get across, and do they do that successfully? So if you scroll down, you'll see those competencies again, as you saw last week. Again, you can click through those to see how everything comes together and how our skills are transferable. So go ahead and click that next arrow at the side of the page, either at the top or the bottom, and that'll bring you along to our module activities. You'll see we have several activities this week. There's a discussion quiz review, and this is just simply you talking about the quiz that you took and your experience of it. How did you do? Was it frustrating? What did you understand? What didn't you understand? This is a nice thing to just reflect on before moving forward. Then we'll have a discussion of our readings. There's a milestone due, as I talked about, that literary analysis. And of course, we're going to continue thinking about that final project, and I'll be posting a video on that probably later this week, just to get you started on that final project. You'll notice under materials, you have some things to read and some things to look at. So Poetry is Not a Luxury is the poem that we'll be talking about. And then there's a literary analysis worksheet to take a look at, the milestone 1 instructions, a poetry or prose analysis worksheet, and again, you have access to the detailed instructions of the final project. There's some other resources listed here that you may find helpful. They're not required to look through, but most students do find them very helpful for them to kind of put their best foot forward in composing the assignments for Module 2. As you continue to scroll down, you'll see some rubrics, both for the milestone 1 and the final project. And I'll be posting an example later in the week of milestone 1 and what that should look like. And of course, we have the module outcomes, just as we did last week, and what they relate to. So go ahead and click that next button again, and that'll bring you over to that quiz review discussion that I mentioned. And so here you're just going to be posting a few sentences, sharing some questions, responding to at least one classmate. It's a little different and less intensive than the discussions that we did last week, because our main discussion, if you click on the next button, will be about the discussions of the readings, discussion 2. So you'll be reading Poetry is Not a Luxury, and I'll post my take on this poem or some additional details. You're going to be thinking about who the speaker, the narrative is. There's a very specific speaker here, so you'll be able to probably identify that fairly easily. But if you don't, as I stated before, feel free to Google this poem and see what other people are talking about in regards to this poem, so that you get all the information that you can and some different perspectives before you post your initial post. So think about who the intended audience is. Who is the author appealing to? And think of it both in a specific way, like who is the specific audience, and then maybe a more general way, like how can this broaden out into or connect with our own experience as the reader of this poem? Who is the broader, more universal audience? So think of those two different audiences. You're going to be summarizing the text in 3 sentences. You can, of course, use more if you need a little more to get the main idea across. You're going to be talking about some of the major themes, and you're going to be writing some more open-ended questions. That'll be due on Wednesday, and then your 2 response posts to your classmates, as usual, will be due on Sunday. And then if you hit the next button, you'll see that we have the Module 2 assignment milestone 1. And so you can choose a poem from our text pages 48 through 54. And remember, that is located under module activities. And then for this assignment, you're going to write an essay with a clear thesis statement to summarize and communicate the main idea or message of the poem, and a literary analysis. And so to prepare for this, there are a couple of worksheets that you can work through. These do not need to be turned in, and they are optional. You may find it helpful to just look through them and get a sense of using them to brainstorm and outline some things that you'd like to include in the literary essay. And then you'll notice here in the instructions what you're going to be submitting. So remember how I said there's this prepare piece that you don't turn in, and then the submit, which is actually what you'll be turning in. So we'll just go over this together. You're going to have a clear introductory paragraph, including that attention grabber, that hook, that hooks your reader into wanting to read more. Think of a newspaper or a magazine title, the headline of news, online, or an actual physical magazine or newspaper, and how the author grabs your attention by using something intriguing that makes you want to read the article. So then in that first paragraph, you're also going to be stating the author and the title of your chosen text, and that's important so that we know what you've chosen and what you're going to be discussing, and the complete thesis statement that communicates the author's message. So composing that one sentence that really gets to the essence of what the author is trying to communicate. Now, of course, there are many different messages that authors communicate in their writing. And so here you should choose one message that you found you really connected to. And then in the body paragraphs, you're going to explain how specific quotes relate to that main message, that thesis that you had. And then you're going to have a conclusion that summarizes your arguments and provokes further thought. What are the key takeaways? And so if you scroll down a little further to the fine print, I like to point this out to everybody because in the fine print section, you'll notice that your essay should be 1,000 words, which is typically about 4 double-spaced pages. You can include a process page if you need to. Your essay should be written in the appropriate font size, like Times New Roman, Calibri or Arial, size 11 or 12. And it must be formatted in APA, so some of those details are important. But look under that additional resources section, and if you click on that Milestone 1 exemplars link, you will see a sample of how this literary essay will look. So you can actually use this as your model to guide you through the entire writing process from the introduction all the way to the end to the conclusion. And I'll be posting some past samples from past classes so you can see how students have also put this together. So usually it's really helpful to have those examples. Then go ahead and click that next button again, and you'll see that you're still thinking about your final project. There's a list of some possible different, things that students have chosen over the past. And you should really just read through these instructions if you have not done that already. You'll notice that there are different options that you can choose, either the analysis essay, the hero's journey, option 2, the alternate ending, option 3, the character conversations dialogue, option 4. You'll notice there's going to be a presentation that comes much, much later in the class, but you're going to be creating either a PowerPoint or a video presentation for that. And then there's a reflection piece. So for the final project, keep those 3 details in mind, that you'll have the actual paper, the presentation, and the reflection. And those will go in different areas in drop boxes and discussion boards as we get towards the end of the class. So this is just something to start thinking about. And if you scroll further down, you'll see the fine print that your presentation should be about 7 to 10 slides, and make sure to include that reference list on the very last slide. And that pretty much wraps up what we're going to be doing in Module 2 this week. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and feel free to get in contact with me if you have any questions.